Chapter 1 Transmigration. Working late again? Same as usual. Barely make any cash from this crappy job, and it's exhausting. We're all in the same boat. After a quick exchange with his roommates, Xu Yuan dragged his tired body back to his room. It was already past 2 a.m., and this month he'd been getting home at this time almost every day. The relentless grind was taking a toll on him. Normally, Xu Yuan would collapse onto his bed as soon as he got home, but tonight was different for some reason. Even though his body was worn out, he wasn't the least bit sleepy. He aimlessly scrolled through his phone but quickly grew bored. So, he got up and turned on his computer. His desktop was cluttered with game icons, but none caught his interest. He was burned out on all of them. Forget it, I'll just go to bed. Just as he was about to shut down his PC, something in the corner of his screen caught his eye. It was a pixelated dirt block icon. Above it, in bold letters, Minecraft. The sight of that icon made Xu Yuan's heart skip a beat. Minecraft was more than just a game to him. It was his youth, his childhood companion for 8 long years. The first game Xu Yuan ever played on a computer was Minecraft. This simple sandbox game had brought him endless joy. As the saying goes, once you step into the world of Minecraft, there's no turning back. And indeed, he had been hooked ever since. 8 years had passed in the blink of an eye, and yet, even after all that time, Xu Yuan never grew tired of it. There was always something new to explore in Minecraft. There were intricate redstone mechanisms waiting to be mastered. Endless mods offering wild, unpredictable experiences. Countless grand structures to build from scratch. Minecraft was a world without limits. A place where you could play however you wanted. You could be an adventurer, traveling through breathtaking landscapes. You could be an explorer, taking on the bizarre monsters in various mods. You could be a farmer, surrounded by crops and animals every day. You could even be an architect, painstakingly recreating something as monumental as the Great Wall, block by block. Or, if you had the skills, you could become a redstone engineer, building circuits so complex that making an in-game computer wouldn't be out of the question. What set Minecraft apart from other games was its infinite nature. There was no final goal, no credits to roll, just endless possibilities for as long as you wanted to stay in the world. That's why most players, like Xu Yuan, found themselves playing for years on end. It was a personal, endlessly customizable universe. For Xu Yuan, who had spent 8 years in the game, Minecraft was filled with cherished memories. Over time, as his friends grew older, got married, and became fathers, they slowly left the game behind. Xu Yuan had watched them all log off one by one, until eventually he too stepped away from his beloved world. Though his work schedule kept him from playing anymore, the Minecraft icon had always remained on his desktop. It had been about 2 years since his last login. It's been so long. Maybe I'll check out my old save? After a quick update, Xu Yuan finally logged into the game. He loaded up his old save and wandered through the familiar world. It was just as he remembered. This janky stilt house took us a whole month to build? Man, we were so bad back then. The sheep still haven't regrown their wool? And these villagers? Still the same rip-off merchants as ever. As Xu Yuan strolled through the world, nostalgia hit him hard. Each building, every landscape, was brimming with memories. Just as he was lost in thought, something caught his eye. A shadow flickered in the mineshaft. At first, Xu Yuan thought it might be one of his friends logging in to surprise him. He instinctively glanced at the bottom left corner of the screen, but there were no notifications of new players joining. Did I imagine that? Curious, Xu Yuan moved deeper into the mineshaft to investigate. As he got closer, he saw a player character standing there, facing away from him. Though he couldn't see the person's face, the classic Steve skin was unmistakable. Could it be Xiao Wu? Of his group of friends, only Xiao Wu ever stuck with the default Steve skin. Xu Yuan was just about to message him when, out of nowhere, the player disappeared. Did they log out? Confused, Xu Yuan blinked at the screen. Then, without warning, a face appeared. It was Steve's face, but his eyes were glowing with an intense white light. This figure was burned into the memory of every Minecraft player, the infamous him, the demon king of the game. Those eerie white eyes, paired with the classic Steve skin, could only mean one thing. Holy craps! Him! Xu Yuan nearly jumped out of his seat. The sight of him's face sent shivers down his spine. And in the very next moment, the screen went black. Before Xu Yuan could process what happened, everything went dark. He had no idea how much time had passed when he suddenly heard voices murmuring nearby. I've been playing this game for a week, and these mobs still scare the hell out of me. Full immersion mode is something else, man. No kidding. Minecraft took more than a decade to develop, and on launch day, it hit 1 billion players. It's fun, but at night? Man, it's terrifying. Mobs everywhere, can't get anything done. True, but you gotta admit, that dig 3, build 1 trick still works like a charm. We'd be dead without it. Shoo, keep it down. There are mobs all over the place. Hearing the chatter around him, Xu Yuan slowly opened his eyes, only to find himself lying in the middle of a grassy field. It was nighttime, but the sky was clear, and the bright moon provided decent visibility. Where the hell am I? Xu Yuan jolted upright, instinctively patting his waist to make sure everything was still intact. Once he confirmed that, he let out a sigh of relief. But that relief was short-lived. Oh, hell no, what? Zombies? In the distance, a group of decaying, foul-smelling zombies had spotted him and were now shambling towards him with arms outstretched. Xu Yuan's mind went blank. Who am I? Where am I? Why are there zombies? Is this a dream? He pinched his thigh hard enough to bring tears to his eyes. Only then did Xu Yuan realize that this was no dream. Chapter 2: The Demon King System Activated. Seeing the zombie steadily closing in, Xu Yuan wasn't sure if his brain short-circuited or what. There was something oddly familiar about this zombie. Blue shirt, purple pants. Why does this look so familiar? It wasn't until the zombie got closer that Xu Yuan realized the outfit's color scheme was exactly like the zombies from Minecraft. Though these zombies didn't have the blocky appearance from the game, they were very much real. The thought struck him, and he couldn't help but feel how absurd it all seemed. Recalling his recent encounter with him in the game, Xu Yuan felt a wave of shock. Wait, did I just transmigrate into a game? As a novel enthusiast, Xu Yuan was no stranger to the concept of transmigration. He just never thought it would actually happen to him. After thinking for a moment, he took a few steps back and started digging at the ground with his hands. Before long, he loosened a block of dirt that fell apart. The moment it disintegrated, it was instantly absorbed. Right after, a virtual screen popped up in front of Xu Yuan, with a long hotbar displayed at the bottom. The dirt block appeared in the first slot. This is Minecraft for real? After a few quick tests, Xu Yuan finally confirmed his suspicions. He had really transmigrated into the world of Minecraft. But this version of the Minecraft world was a lot different from what he'd played before. This was a real-life version of Minecraft. As much as he didn't want to believe it, he had to accept the facts now that he was here. Fortunately, he had 8 years of gaming experience under his belt. With those skills, surviving in this world shouldn't be too hard. Having calmed down, Xu Yuan took a few more steps back and continued digging at the ground. As he scooped out another block of dirt, several zombies were already closing in. Xu Yuan, unfazed, pulled the dirt block from the hotbar and started stacking it beneath his feet. Good thing there aren't any skeletons around, or I'd be in serious trouble. Even though the game had turned into reality, many of the core mechanics were still the same. Zombies were 2 blocks tall. Standing on stacked dirt blocks meant they couldn't reach him. Now perched safely above, Xu Yuan casually swatted at the nearest zombie. Without enough time to craft tools, his only option was to fight them barehanded. But man, it wasn't the same as in the game. In Minecraft, slapping a zombie with your hand was just another day's work if you didn't have a weapon or tools. But here, in reality, Xu Yuan found himself hesitating. The slimy, squishy sensation beneath his hands, coupled with the occasional crack of bone beneath the surface. All the sickeningly real textures churned his stomach. After about 5 or 6 hits, the first zombie finally collapsed. The moment it hit the ground, a cold, mechanical voice echoed in his mind. Ding! Demon King System activated. Species slain, zombie. Acquired skill, numb to pain. Acquired armor, +2. Acquired intimidation. Acquired kill points, 1. Intimidation store unlocked. Kill point store unlocked. The system prompts startled Xu Yuan. It took him a full minute to process. Demon King system? Seeing this prompt, Xu Yuan couldn't help but think back to what happened before he transmigrated. He had dismissed the Herobrine sighting in the game as a trick of the eye. But everything happening now was like a slap in the face, proving he hadn't imagined any of it. I mean, how could it all be a coincidence? First, he encountered Herobrine in the game. Then he gets transmigrated into Minecraft. Now, a Demon King system activates. And conveniently enough, Herobrine was the Demon King in the Minecraft world. This realization left Xu Yuan reeling. What the hell is going on? He tried to piece it together, but it just didn't make sense. Forget it, I'll figure this out later. Let's see what this system can do. As a veteran of countless system-themed novels, Xu Yuan quickly found the way to open the system interface. The first thing that appeared in front of him was his personal stats. Monster info, none. Monster type, unknown. HP 40. Skills, none. Passives, numb to pain, armor +2. Monster info? Monster type? Xu Yuan froze. If there was one thing he could be certain of, it was that he had transmigrated into the Minecraft world and become a part of it. But he assumed he'd be in the game as a player, not a monster. What was this world anyway? Was it real or just part of the game? Before he could delve too deep into his thoughts, the system's voice chimed in again, answering his question. Host is currently in a game world. Game title, Minecraft. Game info, developed by 0 Point Corporation over 10 years, officially launched last week as a full-dive virtual reality game. Game available on all gaming headsets and immersion pods. Current global player count, 1.5 billion. Note, players can respawn. Host cannot. Reading through the information, Xu Yuan finally understood. So, he had transmigrated into the full-dive version of Minecraft. And not only that, but he had become a monster. This gave him a headache. If he was really a monster, then that meant he was now an enemy of the entire player base. Even with the help of a system and 8 years of gaming experience, fighting against 1.5 billion players? Xu Yuan wasn't so sure about that. And worse, players could respawn, while his death would be permanent. What kind of Demon King can handle 1.5 billion people? Xu Yuan was still fretting when a character creation screen suddenly appeared before him. Seeing it, Xu Yuan froze again. It displayed a male character model. The character looked exactly like him. The buzz cut, sunk his skin, and a few days' worth of unshaven stubble. It was him, down to the last detail. Except for one thing, the eyes. There were no eyeballs. Just 2 glowing, radiant orbs of white light. Seeing this, Xu Yuan's heart skipped a beat. This is Herobrine? That familiar appearance completely stunned Xu Yuan. The character model shared his looks and clothes, but with those glowing eyes, it suddenly became a spitting image of Herobrine. No exaggeration, if Herobrine existed in real life, he would look exactly like this. It was all too coincidental, maybe even predestined. Xu Yuan was at a loss for words. Could it be? I'm Herobrine? Everyone who had played Minecraft knew Herobrine. His appearance was identical to the default Minecraft character, Steve, except for those glowing eyes. The story behind Herobrine became famous when a player claimed that, while playing in single-player mode, they had encountered another player in their world. This other player used the default Steve skin but with glowing eyes. When the single-player player approached to investigate, the figure vanished. Later, that player discovered artificial tunnels, structures, and other creations all over their world. They posted about it online, but each time the post was mysteriously deleted. Chapter 3, New Power Unlocked. When he was about to send another message, he received an in-game mail from a player named Herobrine with just one word, stop. Curious, he tried to check Herobrine's profile, but his computer threw up a 404 error. Later, he came across other players who had experienced the same thing. They too had discovered that this Herobrine account seemed to belong to the brother of the game's creator, Notch. So, they sent Notch an email, asking if he had a brother. Notch's reply was brief, yes, but he passed away. Following this, many players began posting that they had also encountered Herobrine. But whenever they saw him, their computers would immediately blue screen or crash. What's more, any posts about Herobrine were swiftly deleted. It was unclear whether these were real stories or just rumors. Still, these tales undeniably shrouded the name Herobrine in an aura of mystery and eeriness. Because of these stories, Herobrine became increasingly well-known. Fan works about him popped up everywhere. In all of them, he was portrayed as a supreme being, unmatched in power. One famous line attributed to Herobrine was, "Gods don't bleed, but you will." This quote alone was enough to showcase his might. Herobrine should have remained a legend. But now, Xu Yuan's experience was eerily similar to those rumors. In his single-player world, he really did encounter Herobrine. However, unlike the tales, after meeting Herobrine, Xu Yuan was transported to another world. Moreover, he activated the Demon King system, and his appearance became identical to Herobrine's. Maybe Herobrine chose Xu Yuan, or perhaps Xu Yuan chose Herobrine. Whether by coincidence or destiny, it didn't matter. At this moment, the legend of Herobrine seemed to be materializing into reality. Xu Yuan couldn't help but feel a thrill of excitement. If I've become Herobrine, even with 10 billion players, I'd still be unbeatable. He wasn't exaggerating. If he were facing ordinary players, Herobrine could easily handle them. No matter how strong players got, they were, in the end, just game data. They needed computers to survive in the game world. But Herobrine, the Demon King, possessed a power no other monster could match. He could infiltrate and destroy networks. That alone was a death sentence for the players. What could they do, even with some universe-dominating sword or pay-to-win characters? He could simply gift them with a nice blue screen and a frozen system. At that point, wouldn't they be at Xu Yuan's mercy? Still, Xu Yuan wasn't entirely sure if he could acquire the same abilities as Herobrine. After all, the power to hack networks was absurdly overpowered. While mulling over this, Xu Yuan opened the system's shop. He had just earned 10 points of intimidation power and 1 point of kill value from killing a zombie. The system had also unlocked the intimidation power and kill value shops. Upon opening the intimidation power shop, a description appeared on his screen. Intimidation power unlocks and controls monster types, expands monster control range. How to obtain kill monsters. Note, you can only control unlocked monster types within the range. After reading the description, Xu Yuan understood the purpose of intimidation power. Its main function was to unlock and control nearby monsters. The more intimidation power he gathered, the more types of monsters he could unlock and control, and the larger the range of control. However, controlling monsters only allowed him to dictate their actions. For example, he could make them stand still or attack a specific target. He couldn't control their minds. To control all the monsters within his range, he would first need to unlock each one. Xu Yuan quickly glanced over the shop. Unlocking zombies required 10,000 intimidation power. Skeletons cost 20,000, and Endermen cost 50,000. The stronger the monster, the more intimidation power was needed to unlock them. Scrolling to the bottom, Xu Yuan saw the requirements for unlocking the Ender Dragon. It needed 1 billion intimidation power. Seeing this, Xu Yuan couldn't help but click his tongue in disbelief. He finally gave the Ender Dragon the respect it deserved. To an old hand like Xu Yuan, the Ender Dragon was just a pushover. But as Minecraft's final boss, it certainly deserved to have a prestigious presence. After checking the unlock prices, Xu Yuan turned his attention to upgrading the control range. The smallest control range was 15 by 15. To control monsters within that range, he would need to spend 50,000 intimidation power. 50,000 was quite a lot. Adding in the cost to unlock zombies, he'd need a total of 60,000 intimidation power. Since each zombie kill provided 10 intimidation power, that meant he'd need to kill 6,000 zombies. Killing 6,000 zombies was no big deal for someone like Xu Yuan, who had been playing MC for 8 years. Once he built a mob farm, 6,000 zombies would be nothing. Even 60,000, 600,000, or 6 million wouldn't be a problem. It looks like increasing the monster control range won't be too hard. With a mob farm, he could collect intimidation power in large quantities. Unlocking all the monsters and upgrading the control range would just be a matter of time. After reviewing intimidation power, Xu Yuan switched to the kill value shop. Killing a single zombie only earned him 1 kill value. Gaining kill value seemed harder than collecting intimidation power. But kill value was clearly more useful than intimidation power. As soon as he opened the kill value shop, the system displayed a short description. Kill value, used to upgrade skills and unlock mods. How to obtain, kill players more, or monsters less. Although the description was brief, it filled Xu Yuan with excitement. You can unlock mods too? Minecraft has countless ways to play, and mods make up half the fun. For most players, exploring different mods was one of the game's greatest joys. Mods were essentially modules that expanded the game. There were a huge variety of mods in Minecraft, constantly being updated. Mods generally fell into 7 broad categories: technology, magic, adventure, farming, decoration, utility, and auxiliary. Each category had numerous popular mods that players were familiar with. For example, in the technology category, there were mods like mechanism, industrial craft, and applied energistics. In magic, there were mods like equivalent exchange, primordial cultivation, and botania. Adventure mods were even more numerous, like ice and fire, the abyss, twilight forest, epic siege, and titans. These mods undoubtedly added countless new ways to play Minecraft. Unlocking mods would significantly boost Xu Yuan's power. Take the Titans mod, for example. If Xu Yuan unlocked it, the system would undoubtedly provide information on the Titan creatures. With enough intimidation power, he could unlock control over them. Imagine commanding a massive army of Titans. Nothing would stand in his way. And if he could unlock the Avaricia mod, Xu Yuan was confident he could grind for the Universe Sword. With the Universe Sword, he could slay gods and demons alike. In short, no matter what type of mod it was, unlocking it would only benefit Xu Yuan. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. As he developed, perhaps one day he really would wield the Universe Sword, surrounded by Titans. After all, that kind of grandeur was befitting of a demon king like Herobrine. Xu Yuan glanced at the kill value shop's mod section. He quickly scrolled through it and noticed that all the available mods seemed to be monster-related. He couldn't find any player-beneficial mods like the katana mod. Am I only allowed to unlock monster mods? As soon as he thought this, the system provided an answer. Aside from monster mods, other player-beneficial mods must be unlocked by players. When all server players' kill values meet the requirements, the corresponding mods will be unlocked. Once player-beneficial mods are unlocked, the host may equip them but cannot craft mod items. After hearing the system's explanation, Xu Yuan finally understood. It meant that mods like katana, equivalent exchange, and industrial craft, which benefited players, could only be unlocked by them. Even after the mods were unlocked, Xu Yuan wouldn't be able to craft the items from those mods. But he could still equip them. In other words, he could just steal them from players. Looks like I'd better start leveling up quickly. Although Xu Yuan had activated the Demon King system, his power still needed to grow steadily. Chapter 4: Unexpected Encounter. If players develop faster than Xu Yuan and unlock certain mods early, it could pose a significant threat to him. For example, if a player unlocks the Avaricia mod and successfully forges the Sword of the Cosmos, but Xu Yuan hasn't yet reached the level to compete with it, he would be at their mercy. In simple terms, it's all about who develops faster. Fortunately, Xu Yuan had already gotten some crucial information ahead of time, so he felt a bit more prepared. Xu Yuan glanced at the first mod available in the mod shop. The first mod was the Twilight Forest. It was considered one of the simpler mods. However, when Xu Yuan saw the kill value required to unlock it, he couldn't help but gasp. Damn, it requires 5 million kill points to unlock. Seeing the enormous amount of kill points needed, he sighed. Looks like I've got a long way to go. Just the Twilight Forest alone required 5 million kill points. Xu Yuan couldn't even imagine how many would be needed to unlock the Titan mod. To advance quickly, confrontations with players would be inevitable in the future. Both killing players and monsters could earn kill points. But the points earned from killing monsters were minimal. Just now, Xu Yuan killed a zombie and only got 1 point. To unlock the Twilight Forest, he'd need to kill 5 million zombies. That number was outrageous. Even if Xu Yuan built a mob grinder, it would take forever to accumulate that many points. On top of that, upgrading skills also required kill points, likely a substantial amount. The quickest way to earn a large number of kill points would be to kill players. But with his current strength, Xu Yuan felt he was still too slow to kill players efficiently. He needed to strengthen himself further. After getting a general understanding of the system, Xu Yuan closed the interface. I need to gather more skills and set up a mob grinder. For now, the safest bet was to gain as many skills as possible. From the system prompt he received after killing the zombie, Xu Yuan realized that killing a monster for the first time granted him the monster skill. This would be easy enough for him. Once the mob grinder was up and running, his deterrence level would also increase rapidly. With enough skills and a few monster minions by his side, he'd be ready to face the players. It wasn't that Xu Yuan was lacking in technique. His concern was that he only had 1 life. Players could respawn infinitely without a care, but Xu Yuan couldn't afford to take that gamble. Moreover, Xu Yuan hadn't unlocked any monster allies yet, and the nearby monsters were still hostile to him. If he encountered players and the monsters attacked him at the same time, that would be far too humiliating for a demon lord. While fending off the monsters around him, Xu Yuan planned his next moves. Just as the second zombie fell at his feet, he suddenly heard a familiar SSSSS sound from behind. That sound was one that had been etched into Xu Yuan's DNA. A creeper? Almost by muscle memory, Xu Yuan didn't even think. He immediately jumped off the dirt platform he had built. He quickly put some distance between himself and the creeper. The creeper's explosion radius was about 4 to 5 blocks, and Xu Yuan didn't have enough dirt blocks on hand to tower up. Putting distance between him and the creeper was his only way to survive. Luckily, Xu Yuan reacted fast enough. As soon as he gained some distance, boom, the creeper exploded. The spot where Xu Yuan had been standing was instantly blown into a deep crater. The surrounding zombies were also taken out by the creeper's blast, its friendly fire at work. Phew! Good thing I reacted fast. If Xu Yuan hadn't moved in time, the creeper would have had its moment of glory. Creepers, back in the day, even Herobrine couldn't handle them. Creepers were the lifelong nemesis of every Minecraft player. Masters of ambush, they would always show up out of nowhere, delivering a deadly surprise. By the time players heard the hiss, they were already signed up for an unplanned trip to the respawn screen. As the dust settled from the creeper's explosion, the system chimed in. Intimidation plus 10. Kill value plus 1. Intimidation plus 10. Kill value plus 1. Skill acquired. Explosion. Explosion LV1. Sacrifice 99% of your max health to deal area damage within a 5x6 range. Cooldown, 60 seconds. Upgrade cost, 5,000 kill points. There's a cooldown too? Damn. 5,000 kill points to upgrade? That's expensive. The explosion skill was Xu Yuan's first active skill. Though killing zombies had also granted him a passive skill, pain immunity, that skill couldn't be upgraded. Explosion, on the other hand, was very useful. It dealt area damage, and its blast radius was quite large. If a player didn't have armor and was too close, they could be instantly killed. However, the upgrade cost was high. Though the skill had a cooldown, that was understandable. After all, the skill was highly destructive. If it could be used without restriction, Xu Yuan could take over the world with just that one move. At level 1, the explosion consumed 99% of his health, which meant he would be left with almost no health after each use. That was still very risky. To stay safe, he'd need to level up the skill several times. After gaining the explosion skill, Xu Yuan's curiosity was piqued. He looked around. Seeing no monsters nearby, he decided to test the skill. Though it was risky, he couldn't resist the temptation to try out his first active skill. He picked up the dirt blocks blown away by the creeper, just in case another monster attacked, and found a clear space. Then he activated the explosion skill. Boom! The ground beneath Xu Yuan was instantly blown apart, leaving a crater. He collapsed into the pit along with the surrounding dirt. At that moment, the system prompt popped up again. Kill value plus 27. Kill value plus 15. Kill value plus 17. Before Xu Yuan could react, he heard a scream. Looking closely, he realized that 3 player corpses had appeared in the pit. The scream came from the only living player left, standing deep in the pit, a player with the ID Steve. Steve's eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at Xu Yuan. Before Xu Yuan could even respond, Steve quickly pulled some dirt blocks from his inventory and started stacking them to escape. In seconds, he leapt out of the pit and disappeared into the night without looking back. Xu Yuan was dumbfounded. What just happened? Also, if I'm not mistaken, that player's name was Steve? As a monster, Xu Yuan naturally had night vision. And now, after killing the zombie and creeper, his vision in the dark had become even sharper. He was certain he hadn't misread the ID just now. The reason he was so surprised was because of the name Steve. Any Minecraft player would recognize the name Steve. Steve's fame far surpassed that of Herobrine. After all, Steve was the default character in the game. As Minecraft's iconic figure, he appeared in many fan-made works. Steve was naturally the main character in those stories. Some fan works even linked Steve and Herobrine together. Because Herobrine and Steve looked nearly identical, except for their eyes, some fan works depicted Herobrine as Steve's dark side. Xu Yuan wasn't sure if this was a coincidence. The first player he encountered after becoming Herobrine had the ID Steve, and that player looked exactly like Minecraft Steve. Their appearance was strikingly similar to his own. I'll probably see him again in the future. Chapter 5 Unnamed Monster. Xu Yuan didn't believe it was just a coincidence. However, since he had already encountered it, and they were now standing on opposite sides, a confrontation was inevitable. As Herobrine, Xu Yuan had full confidence that he could defeat Steve. After collecting his thoughts, Xu Yuan glanced at the fading corpses of the players around him. This was his first time killing players, and he had just reaped 3 kill points. But there was something strange. The kill points each of the 3 players provided were different. Xu Yuan was still puzzled when the system's voice rang out in his mind. The more monsters a player kills, the more kill points they provide. After killing a player, their accumulated kill points will reset to 0. Hearing this, Xu Yuan finally understood. So that's it. Fatten them up before the slaughter. Although resetting a player's kill points after just 1 kill was a bit unfavorable for Xu Yuan, he knew he couldn't drain one sheep dry. If the points didn't reset, he could easily imprison a high-value player and kill them hundreds of times a day, earning points effortlessly. Having roughly understood how to acquire kill points, Xu Yuan found an empty spot, dug 3 blocks down, and filled the top with dirt to recover his health underground. He had been lucky earlier. When Steve saw him, instead of attacking, he had bolted immediately. If Steve had been a bit more reckless and attacked before Xu Yuan could react, he likely would have been done for. After all, using the explosion skill had left Xu Yuan on the brink of death. Whether it was a monster or a player, the situation was incredibly dangerous. It was better to be cautious. Thankfully, Xu Yuan, appearing as a monster, didn't have a hunger bar to worry about. Health regeneration wasn't limited, and soon enough, his health bar was steadily rising. Because his health pool was small, it wasn't long before he was fully healed. Xu Yuan paused to think. I should blow up some stone to build a mob farm and wait for daylight to secure the first kill of some monsters. The earlier encounter had made Xu Yuan more cautious. Without sufficient strength, he couldn't afford to take unnecessary risks. Life was precious, and luck wouldn't always be on his side. Building a mob farm required a large amount of stone and some iron ingots. With the explosion skill, gathering stone was easy, just a few blasts and he could collect several stacks. For now, Xu Yuan didn't have enough intimidation points to unlock the monster compendium, so it was better to avoid caves at night and work underground. Otherwise, if he got too absorbed in blowing up stone and another creeper ambushed him, It could be game over. With that in mind, Xu Yuan got to work. Meanwhile, on the other side of the plains, Steve was sprinting for his life, gasping for breath. He kept glancing over his shoulder, checking behind him. After several looks to ensure nothing was following him, he finally stopped and exhaled in relief. He quickly pulled out a stone shovel and dug down 3 blocks, sealing the top with dirt before letting out a long sigh. What was that? Before he could catch his breath, a series of ding-ding sounds from his friend messages startled him, causing him to shudder. He took a moment to calm down before cautiously opening the messages. What just happened? Damn it, how did I die in the middle of chatting? Anyone know what the hell happened? Seeing his friend's frantic messages, Steve took a deep breath and replied. You guys were probably blown up? His reply left the others confused. Blown up? A creeper? That can't be right. Why would a creeper explode out of nowhere? Did a zombie and a creeper fight and accidentally hit you? What the hell? And you survived it? Everyone immediately thought of a creeper when Steve mentioned an explosion. After all, the creeper was the only mob they'd encountered so far in the game that could blow up. Steve shook his head and typed back. It wasn't a creeper. It was something that looked a lot like me, a monster. I don't know what it was. Its eyes, they glowed like a light source. As Steve replayed the scene in his mind, he shuddered. He couldn't shake the eerie feeling of how that monster looked just like him. He had spent hours crafting his character's face when creating it. Sure, it wasn't impossible for another player to have a similar design, but this wasn't a player. This was a monster, one that looked exactly like his character. The odds of such a thing happening were unbelievably small. Unless, of course, it was a new monster model added to the game. But Steve quickly dismissed that idea. MC, developed by the gaming giant 0 Point over the course of 10 years, had only been in open beta for a week. There was no way this monster could have been something newly added. Moreover, what was even more bizarre was that this monster didn't have a name tag. Every monster they had encountered so far, zombies, creepers, skeleton archers, had a name hovering above their heads. But this monster, the one that looked just like him, had nothing. That's why Steve was so uncertain when describing what he saw. He had no idea what he had encountered. Steve's friends were stunned by his description. It wasn't a creeper? Wait, you're saying that the monster looked just like you? Bro, are you sure you weren't seeing things? Glowing eyes? Could we have stumbled upon some hidden boss? Steve could tell from their replies that none of his friends grasped the seriousness of the situation. I wasn't seeing things, and I didn't make a mistake. I spent days perfecting my character's face. I'd know it anywhere. And I don't think it was a boss. He wasn't just some ordinary monster. I think he has a mind of his own. At first, Steve had considered the possibility that what he encountered was just a boss monster. Maybe it looked like him by coincidence. Perhaps because it was a boss, it didn't have a name tag. But when he remembered the way that monster looked at him, Steve immediately dismissed that thought. Those eyes, though empty, felt alive. When that monster looked at him, it wasn't acting on a preset string of code, it was thinking. Steve was so sure of this because if it had been just a regular boss or monster, it would have acted immediately once Steve was within its detection range, moving in for an attack. But this monster didn't. It first looked around the surroundings, then fixed its gaze on Steve and began thinking. It was only because of that pause that Steve had the chance to escape. And that was what made Steve's skin crawl. Imagine playing a fully immersive game, and suddenly a monster that looks just like you appears. It has no name tag, it's deadly, it wiped out your entire team, and yet, instead of attacking you, it just stares at you with those glowing, terrifying eyes. Chapter 6, Monster Among Us. In such an environment, anyone would feel their scalp tingle with dread. After seeing Steve's message, his friends couldn't help but start teasing him. Sentient? Bro, are you sure you didn't get scared stiff? Haha, you're too paranoid. It's just a game. What kind of sentience are you talking about? It's just a bunch of code. Maybe it was a bug or something. The friends, having not seen the encounter for themselves, naturally thought Steve was exaggerating. Steve, seeing their reactions, felt a surge of frustration. Fine. Let me ask you this, if it was a normal monster, why didn't it attack me the moment it showed up? Steve's fervent defense seemed like he was grasping at straws to his friends. But since he was essentially their leader, they didn't want to argue with him too much, so they replied. Alright, bro. We believe you. How about this, when daylight comes, we'll go check it out. Yeah, if it's really a bug, we could report it and maybe get some rewards? Okay, meeting adjourned. Once it's daylight, I'll head over. Though they agreed on the surface, none of them truly believed Steve. He knew arguing further was pointless. Once they saw it for themselves, they'd understand. After closing the chat window, Steve immediately opened the forums, searching for anything related to white-eyed monsters. He scoured the threads for a long time but found nothing useful. Disappointed, he had to give up. Looks like I'm the only one who's seen this. The image of that monster was etched deeply into Steve's mind. A flood of questions overwhelmed him. However, none of these could be answered now. He'd have to wait until he encountered it again to start uncovering the truth. The night passed quickly. The day-night cycle in the game was fairly fast, though not as brief as in the original Minecraft. In this world, both day and night lasted 3 hours each. Xu Yuan had been working diligently through the night. He had made several discoveries. Although he was a monster, he wasn't quite the same as the others. For one, he could craft and use tools. Like the players, he also had access to a backpack and quickbar slots, with the same amount of storage space. This made things much more convenient. Without tools or a backpack, his progress would have been much slower. Throughout the night, Xu Yuan used his explosion skill to mine a lot of stone and gather some iron ingots. By the time he had fully restored his health, dawn was breaking. When he emerged to the surface, Xu Yuan surveyed his surroundings. The terrain was a grassland, giving him a clear view. This, however, made it unsuitable for building a monster spawner tower. Xu Yuan took 2 factors into account. First, the terrain, and second, secrecy. The tower had to be hidden from players, or they'd destroy it, hampering its efficiency. To maximize the spawner's efficiency, it would be best to build it over the ocean. In the game, each area has a limit on how many monsters can spawn. If the tower was built on land, there would be plenty of caves in the area for monsters to spawn in, reducing the spawner's effectiveness. By building over the ocean, where underwater caves are filled with water, fewer creatures would spawn below, improving the tower's yield. With this in mind, Xu Yuan set off in search of the ocean. After about half an hour of walking, he finally reached the coastline. He pulled out his crafting table, made a wooden boat, and began rowing out to sea. He wasn't going to build the spawner tower too close to the shore, that would make it too obvious. After rowing for another half hour, he found a suitable spot and got to work. The spawner tower he planned to build was the simplest design, a water flow-based system. The principle was straightforward: create a spawning platform about 30 blocks above the ground, and use water to push the monsters off the platform, making them fall to their deaths. Xu Yuan didn't need to set up a collection system since the items dropped by the monsters were of little use to him. As Xu Yuan busied himself with construction, Steve and his friends had returned to the scene of the previous day's encounter. This game world was different from the original Minecraft in some key aspects. In the original, without mods, there were no coordinates displayed. Dying would cause a player to lose everything in their inventory and respawn randomly in the world. Many players would die once and never find their way back home. In this game world, for the sake of convenience, there was a real-time map. While players still dropped all their items upon death, they could respawn at a nearby location of their choosing. For example, if you died at coordinates 322, 12, 50, you could respawn near that spot. This feature ensured that players didn't end up too far from home after dying. It was also why Steve and his friends were able to regroup so quickly. Now, standing at the deep pit Xu Yuan had dug, the group fell into silence. I don't remember this pit being here before. This doesn't look like it was dug. It looks like it was blown up. And that stone pillar in the middle, it looks like it was built up from below. Could this really be the work of that monster Steve was talking about? The sight of the deep pit left Steve and his friends stunned. Before this, none of them had believed Steve's story. But now, after seeing the pit, their skepticism began to waver. Clearly, this pit wasn't naturally formed. When players mine or dig, the holes are usually neat and organized, either a 2x2 tunnel or straight down. But this pit looked like it had been blown open. There was no way a normal player had made it. Besides, they had confirmed the night before that there were no other players around. So, this pit could only have been made by the monster Steve had mentioned. Everyone knew that the monster could use an explosion skill similar to a creeper's. But now, faced with this pit, they were filled with questions. Why had it gone down there? And why did it build its way back up? Was it searching for something? And why, as a monster, could it even use blocks? These questions swirled through their minds. Whatever the case, their perception of the monster had changed. What Steve had said now seemed more plausible. This is seriously messed up. Could this game have some kind of intelligent AI monsters? That's impossible. If there were, the game company would be advertising it everywhere. The way it acted, it doesn't seem like a monster at all. It's more like a player. Could it be some kind of mutated player or something? If something like this existed, the forums would be blowing up. Chapter 7: The Spider's Gift. The group debated back and forth, unable to come to a logical conclusion. Finally, they all turned to Steve for answers, since he was the only one who had seen the monster. Steve, seeing their expectant gazes, thought for a moment before offering a word of caution. All I can say is, if we run into it again, be careful. After all, it's just a game. Even if we die, we can respawn. As for what it really is, we'll have to figure that out over time. Though the whole thing was bizarre, Steve had calmed down since his initial scare. After all, it was just a game. Even if they ran into the monster again, it was only a matter of losing one life. They could always respawn. As long as they weren't carrying anything too valuable, it wasn't a big deal. As for the mystery surrounding the monster, it would unravel in time. Hearing Steve's words, the others nodded in agreement. Steve quickly followed up, adding, "Let's set up our base camp around here. The environment is great, and there's a chance we might encounter it again." It had only been a week since the game started, so players hadn't progressed much. Most were still wandering, exploring new places without establishing permanent homes. The game world was vast, and many players preferred to see as much of it as possible. Steve's group had the same idea until yesterday's events changed his mind. Now, Steve felt compelled to settle down. His curiosity about that creature was overwhelming. He couldn't explain why, but he felt a strange sense of destiny, as if this encounter wasn't just a coincidence. Deep down, he knew they would meet again. The others had no objections to Steve's decision. "All right, I'll go chop some trees. Let's build a nice 3-story house. This grassland's perfect, good visibility, plenty of animals. I'll corral a few, so we'll have a steady supply of meat. I'll dig for coal. We need to light up this area so we don't have to worry at night." As everyone set off to work, Steve opened the game forum once again. He updated one of his most popular posts, a bestiary guide, adding a new entry. Monster name, unknown. Appearance, white-eyed Steve with attached image. Attributes, unknown. Skills, explosive ability similar to creepers, but doesn't die from the blast. Abilities, can collect and use blocks. First sighting location. Coordinates redacted. Notes, it seems capable of independent thought, not a mere AI construct or boss. Caution, if spotted, retreat immediately. We are not equipped to handle it yet. Steve was somewhat of a celebrity in the game's forum community. Known for posting detailed strategy guides, he had garnered a large following. As soon as he posted this new entry, comments began pouring in. What did Steve? You serious? No way. I love your guides, but this sounds like a reach for views. If you'd said it was just a monster, fine, but white-eyed Steve. That sounds too fake. Steve, man, I've been following your posts for ages, but this one, really? Pics or it didn't happen, Steve? Show us proof. Most players found Steve's claims hard to believe. A monster that looked like Steve himself, had no official name, and could think independently? It sounded too outlandish to be true. Many assumed Steve was making things up for attention. But Steve didn't respond to the comments. He understood their skepticism. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't believe it either. But the truth was, that strange creature did exist. He was sure of it. Someday, everyone would see for themselves. After 2 hours of effort, Xu Yuan finally completed his first monster grinder. The structure was up and running, and even though Xu Yuan wasn't personally killing the monsters, the system still credited him with gaining intimidation from their deaths. It wasn't long before his screen was flooded with notifications. Intimidation plus 10. Intimidation plus 10. New skills unlocked. Invisible arrow, precision shooting. Invisible arrow allows the use of a bow without needing arrows. Precision shooting LV1 guarantees 100% accuracy. Upgrade to homing arrow with 5,000 kills. These skills were undoubtedly courtesy of the skeletons being killed by the grinder. The basic setup was yielding zombies, creepers, and skeletons, nothing special, but it met his needs. After all, Xu Yuan wasn't looking for loot, only intimidation. The grinder wasn't large, only a medium-sized one, given that he lacked flight skills, which made building anything bigger quite a hassle. But for now, it was more than sufficient. After a quick calculation, Xu Yuan estimated the grinder was netting him around 5,000 monster kills per hour, meaning 50,000 intimidation points. Just 1 hour would allow him to unlock a 15 by 15 monster control radius. Satisfied with the setup, Xu Yuan smiled. Now, onto my next goal, claiming the first kills of some key monsters. In the Minecraft world, there are 3 primary dimensions: the overworld, the nether, and the end. Each has its own exclusive monsters, and Xu Yuan aimed to be the first to kill each one. For now, though, he focused on the overworld creatures. After spending hours constructing his grinder, his biggest current need was a flight ability. Building without it was pure torture. Thinking back to Minecraft lore, the creatures capable of flight were bats, phantoms, ghasts, withers, and the ender dragon. Xu Yuan had already encountered bats while mining earlier. Killing them hadn't awarded him anything. No skills, no intimidation points. They were purely decorative creatures. From his analysis, it seemed like only monsters that had natural flying abilities could provide flight skills upon their defeat. Bats, phantoms, ender dragons, and the like had wings. They didn't rely on special skills to fly. Therefore, they probably wouldn't grant flight abilities even if Xu Yuan landed the first kill. That left ghasts and withers as the most likely sources of a flight skill, but both were located in the nether. Going to the nether required building a portal, which meant gathering at least 10 blocks of obsidian. While he could use a bucket trick to create the portal without a diamond pickaxe, it was still a hassle. Xu Yuan sighed. Forget it. I'll just settle for a teleportation skill for now. For that, he needed to hunt Endermen. Known as little blacks by the community due to their jet black appearance, these tall, lanky creatures were the key to unlocking teleportation. With a clear objective in mind, Xu Yuan set off in search of Endermen. Along the way, he casually dispatched a few zombies and skeletons lurking in the shade of trees. Eventually, he spotted a lone spider and quickly brought it down in a few strikes. To his surprise, the rewards for killing the spider were better than expected. New skills unlocked: poison immunity, wall walking, strong webs. Poison immunity grants immunity to all poisons. Wall walking enables the user to walk on any surface. Strong webs LV1 fires a web with a hardness rating of 5 to trap enemies, reducing their movement speed by 30%. Cooldown 60 seconds. Upgrade available with 5,000 kills. Xu Yuan hadn't anticipated that a mere spider would grant him such useful skills. Poison immunity was self-explanatory, a valuable passive ability. But wall walking? That would come in handy for building, mining, and even traveling. Strong webs, meanwhile, offered an upgradable ability. The upgrade path likely involved increasing the web's hardness and slowing effect. If the web's hardness reached that of obsidian, or better yet, bedrock, and the slow effect reached 100% or higher, it would essentially become a binding rope that no one could escape. For the first time ever, I actually find spiders kind of cute. Xu Yuan chuckled. Chapter 8 Night Patrol, White-Eyed Steve. Xu Yuan had a classic case of tasting the sweetness after a slap in the face. When he played Minecraft before, there were two creatures he disliked the most. The first one was the silverfish. Any veteran of the game would understand why. Its appearance was just unsettling. The second was the spider. The multiple eyes were just too much for someone with arachnophobia like Xu Yuan. But now, surprisingly, Xu Yuan found the spider kind of cute. After dispatching the spider, it didn't take long for Xu Yuan to encounter Little Black, an Enderman. Approaching the Enderman, Xu Yuan placed the wooden boat he had crafted earlier at its feet. The Enderman, as if in cooperation, immediately stepped onto the boat. This method Xu Yuan used was arguably the most efficient way to deal with an Enderman. Endermen could teleport within a 64 by 64 by 64 cube, making them quite difficult to hit. There were two methods to kill them without taking damage. One, you could build a platform above your head, exploiting the Enderman's height so it couldn't reach you. Or, you could restrict its teleportation by trapping it in a boat. Once it's in the boat, the Enderman is like fish on a cutting board, at your mercy. After a few solid hits, Xu Yuan successfully killed the Enderman and gained the skill he'd been dreaming about. Skill acquired, teleportation. Skill acquired, projectile immunity. Teleportation LV1. Teleport within a 64 by 64 by 64 cube centered on your current location. Can carry one item or creature. Cooldown, 60 seconds. Cost, 5,000 kill points to upgrade. Projectile immunity. Reflects projectiles and renders you immune to projectile damage. Projectiles include arrows, tridents, snowballs, eggs, llama spit, etc. Upon seeing the system's detailed description, Xu Yuan couldn't help but chuckle. The system was thorough, even mentioning llama spit. He glanced at the list of skills he had acquired so far. All seemed quite practical. Though he noticed he didn't have many offensive skills. Only explosion, cobweb, and the infinity bow were somewhat offensive. But for now it was enough. I'll collect a few more first kills, spend the night farming for intimidation, and then I'll be ready to meet the players. What Xu Yuan needed most right now was kill points. After all, kill points were essential for upgrading skills. His primary goal was to enhance the explosion skill. It was a powerful area of effect attack with high damage. Paired with the teleportation skill, Xu Yuan could instantly teleport to a player and take them out with ease. He wanted to upgrade this skill as a precaution. Currently, using explosion consumed 99% of his health, leaving him with just a sliver, far too dangerous. With this thought in mind, Xu Yuan began teleporting around the map, continuing his search for various monsters. It had been a while since Steve posted his thread. The thread had gained significant traction. Players were quite curious about the white-eyed creature Steve mentioned. At this point, the comments under the post were polarized. Most people didn't believe Steve, thinking he was just trying to get attention. However, a small minority stood by him. After all, Steve's credibility in the game was fairly high. Although the game had only been live for a week, Steve's strategies had helped many players. Seeing the thread blow up, many players, either out of curiosity or in search of some spotlight, flocked to the grasslands where Steve resided. The grasslands were now bustling with activity. "Steve, where's this creature you were talking about? Came all this way just to see that monster. Where's this white-eyed creature, Steve? White-eyed Steve. Just ask Steve to roll his eyes at you. There's your white-eyed monster. Ha. Steve's even set up base here. I doubt he's lying. If there really is a creature like the one Steve described, with so many people here, wouldn't we all get wiped out?" The once quiet grasslands had turned into a lively scene with the arrival of so many players. More players were still on their way from different locations. Since it was still early in the game, players were mostly nomadic, and none of them had anything particularly valuable. So, it didn't really matter where they settled. Since that was the case, it was better to group up. At least they could watch each other's backs in daily life. Came from the north. Took a look around, and this place is actually pretty good. Diverse terrain, and if you walk for half an hour, there's even an ocean. I was just here for fun, but this place looks promising. I'm staying. Who knows, Maybe the creature Steve mentioned is a hidden boss. If we kill it, there could be some great loot. No harm in waiting around. Hey, what are you doing? I claimed this spot first. After arriving in the grasslands, many players decided they didn't want to leave. Steve had chosen a good spot. The terrain was diverse, and the resources plentiful. Watching matchbox-shaped houses spring up, Steve felt conflicted. With so many players gathering here, he wasn't sure if it was a good thing or not. Though the saying, strength in numbers, held true, sometimes too many people could cause problems. But now, there wasn't much he could do about it. It wasn't like Steve owned the land. Since the players had come, there was no way to drive them away. Plus, if they could work together, their development would speed up significantly. With that in mind, Steve began giving instructions. Everyone, try to chop more wood or mine some coal. Make more torches and light up the area. This is grassland terrain. There will be a lot of monsters at night. Everyone should try not to go out after dark. Also, since you've decided to settle here, let's stick to some rules. No stealing or robbing others. Though the players didn't have much valuable stuff on them right now, Steve wanted to lay down the ground rules early. The players worked tirelessly all day. By the end, the grasslands were beginning to resemble a small village. They had fields, pig pens, sheep pens, and cow pens, all the essentials. The only thing that left something to be desired was the players' house-building skills. Aside from a few small houses that looked decent, most of the buildings were just different varieties of matchboxes. As night fell, the grasslands lit up with the soft glow of scattered torches. The players were cautious, placing torches all around the village. Even though the village was well lit, no one dared to wander outside. None of them had the ability to roam safely at night yet. With nothing else to do after dark, the players returned to their homes and began browsing the forums. At that moment, a live stream was pinned at the top of the game's forums. The title of the stream was simple and to the point. Night Patrol, White-Eyed Steve. The stream was hosted by a player named Brother Mang. Brother Mang was currently in the same grasslands where Steve resided. From the stream's title, it was clear that he was trying to ride the wave of attention. Steve's post still had a lot of buzz in the forums. Many of the players who came to the grasslands were there for the same reason, to catch some of that spotlight. During the day, quite a few people started streaming. But those streams were pretty dull, just showing players farming and building houses. Anyone tuning into the stream wanted to see something related to Steve's so-called white-eyed creature. Brother Mang knew how to play to the crowd, capitalizing on this wave of attention. At this moment, in Brother Mang's live stream, he held a torch in his right hand and an iron sword in his left, making his way towards the unlit parts of the grasslands, away from the village. Alright guys, no fake hype here. We're going in for real. Let's see if Steve's monster actually exists. I'll leave the directions up to you. Wherever you tell me to go, I'll go. Come on, send some gifts and follow the channel. As Brother Mang ventured into the darkness, he kept hyping up the viewers. The stream showed his first-person perspective, and since the game was in full immersion mode, the viewers felt as if they were right there with him. The chat and gifts flooded the screen. Brother Mang's got guts? Isn't he just walking out there to lose that iron sword? Are you new here? Brother Mang is all about skills. His past streams were all about nighttime patrols. Let's not exaggerate. His reflexes are decent, but whenever he sees a monster, he's all about digging 3 blocks down and blocking himself in. I'm actually excited. What if he really runs into that creature? If he does, he'll just call for backup, right? With so many players out there, if everyone spits on the creature, it'll drown. Chapter 9 Run. He's right behind you. The live stream was buzzing with excitement, and gifts from viewers were pouring in. Brother Mang was full of energy. He didn't actually believe in any of this white-eyed monster nonsense. He was just riding the trend for attention. After all, his streams usually involved him wandering around at night, and this time was no different. As he engaged with his viewers, he ventured further into the night. The day had passed quickly, but Xu Yuan's progress was less than ideal. Initially, Xu Yuan had hoped to achieve several first kills of the monsters in the main world within a single day. Unfortunately, luck wasn't on his side. He had spent the whole day searching but couldn't find a swamp or woodland mansion. In the swamp, slimes and witches spawn, while in woodland mansions, evokers and other rare mobs appear. But none of these terrains were anywhere nearby. Seeing this, Xu Yuan had no choice but to let it go. Sometimes, the harder you search for something, the less likely you are to find it. So, Xu Yuan decided not to force it. Nevertheless, he didn't walk away completely empty-handed. After a day of running around, he managed to acquire a new skill. Stealth LV1 allows the user to hide within stone. Cost 5,000 kill points to upgrade. This skill was dropped from a silverfish he had killed. He had to admit, it was a pretty decent skill, a solid lifesaver in tricky situations. After a long day of hunting, Xu Yuan opened his system panel to check his stats. At this moment, his intimidation value had climbed past 130,000. His kill points had also reached over 13,000. Xu Yuan did some quick mental calculations. Unlocking the zombies, skeletons, and creepers would require 80,000 intimidate points, and expanding his control range to 15 by 15 would need another 50,000. It added up perfectly to 130,000 deterrence points. How convenient! With all the points spent, Xu Yuan then upgraded his explosion and teleportation skills. Explosion LV2 costs 89% of your health, deals damage in a 6 by 7 area, 40-second cooldown. Upgrade cost, 10,000 kill points. Teleportation LV2 allows teleportation within a 74 by 74 by 74 block radius, carrying up to 2 items or creatures, 40-second cooldown. Upgrade cost, 10,000 kill points. Xu Yuan only had 13,000 kill points, so he could only upgrade 2 skills. Otherwise, he would have prioritized leveling up explosion first. With everything prepared, Xu Yuan stretched his neck. Time to go find some players to spar with? After unlocking his expanded control range and upgrading his skills, Xu Yuan's strength hadn't exactly transformed, but he was notably stronger. With the teleportation skill at hand, players were hardly a threat to him. After all, he also had a passive ability that made him immune to all projectile damage. So his only real concern was close-range combat. But with teleportation, even if a player did get too close, Xu Yuan could easily widen the gap. And if things got desperate, he could always blow the player up. The only drawback was that both of these skills still had relatively long cooldowns, so he needed to stay cautious. With his strength improved, Xu Yuan immediately began searching for players on the map. He wasn't wandering aimlessly, he had already picked his first destination, the plains where he had first encountered Steve. After all, that was the spot where Xu Yuan had first come across a player. Though there was no guarantee that Steve or his friends would return to that place, there could always be other players in the area. Xu Yuan was also hoping to stumble upon a swamp or woodland mansion while he searched for players, so he could secure the first kills of the monsters there. Teleporting through the terrain, Xu Yuan traveled for about 40 minutes before he finally reached the area where he had first met Steve. Just as he was about to press on, he noticed some movement up ahead. Looking closer, he saw a player. The player's ID was Brother Mang. He was holding a torch, muttering to himself as if narrating his actions. Seeing this, Xu Yuan quietly concealed himself within a nearby stone. Guys, we've been searching for ages, and still no sign of that so-called white-eyed monster. Brother Mang grumbled. I'll search for another half an hour, and then I'll head back. Now, should I keep going straight into the forest or turn left into that cave? Your choice, guys? Brother Mang checked the stream's chat and, seeing the viewers' suggestions, turned towards the cave on his left. The cave wasn't too dark, mainly because it had another opening on the opposite side. In truth, it was more like a tunnel cutting through the mountain than a proper cave. It wasn't particularly long, either, about 20 blocks or so in length. The tunnel had a chilling, eerie vibe, and the occasional gust of wind sent shivers down one's spine. Holding his torch up, Brother Mang took a deep breath and stepped inside. The torchlight quickly illuminated the tunnel, revealing a few scattered zombies and a skeleton archer standing further down. Seeing the monsters, Brother Mang instantly recoiled. Damn, guys, there's a skeleton archer in there. Those things are such a pain. Even though Brother Mang frequently wandered at night, he usually stuck to open areas where he could see monsters from a distance and avoid them. He hadn't ventured into many narrow spaces like this tunnel before. In confined areas, it was much harder to survive if too many monsters showed up. And with a skeleton archer, things got even trickier. The stream chat blew up as the viewers teased Brother Mang for his fear. Brother Mang, weren't you supposed to be fearless? What's wrong, scared to go in? Just one skeleton archer and you're already freaking out? What'll you do if you run into the white-eyed monster? Brother Mang, what's that behind you? Quick, check behind you. Whenever the chat started spamming, it was usually hard to stop, especially when it came to telling Brother Mang to check behind him. Since Brother Mang streamed his night adventures so often, his viewers loved to prank him by scaring him about things behind his back. Whenever he showed signs of fear, the chat would explode with calls to check behind him. Seeing the spamming chat, Brother Mang couldn't help but laugh. Turning around, he lifted his torch to light up the area behind him. Not far away, a few zombies and a creeper were resting under a tree. Look guys. Here's what's behind me. See? 3 zombies and a creeper, all quietly resting under that tree. You can't scare me anymore, alright? This joke's getting old. Seriously, who else in this plains biome has the guts to hunt monsters at night like me? Brother Mang was well aware of his stream's usual antics. However, at that moment, some of the more attentive viewers began to feel something was off. Why do those monsters look off? I can't quite put my finger on it, but something's strange. Same here. Something feels wrong, but I don't know what it is. I've had that feeling ever since he stepped into the tunnel. A good number of viewers had been feeling uneasy since Brother Mang had entered the tunnel and spotted the monsters, but none of them could pinpoint exactly what was wrong. Meanwhile, Steve was also watching Brother Mang's stream. Steve was naturally curious about the white-eyed monster but wasn't reckless enough to wander around looking for it like Brother Mang. Since he didn't have much to do that night, he figured watching the stream would be entertaining enough. If Brother Mang did encounter the white-eyed monster, it would confirm that Steve wasn't imagining things. After watching the stream for a while, Steve, like many of the viewers, began to notice something strange. Carefully observing the screen and replaying everything that had happened since Brother Mang entered the tunnel, a sudden realization hit him. He shot up from his seat, feeling chills run down his spine. It's the monsters. There's something wrong with the monsters. He's already within their aggro range, but they haven't attacked him. It finally clicked for Steve. From the moment Brother Mang had entered the tunnel, none of the monsters had made a move to attack him. And now that Steve thought about it, the stream's frame rate had dropped slightly as soon as Brother Mang entered the tunnel. It was subtle, but Steve had noticed it, and so had a few other viewers, as noted in the chat. This frame rate drop had never occurred before. All these strange details pointed to one terrifying conclusion: the white-eyed monster might be closer than anyone thought. Chapter 10. We can fail 1,000 times, but he can't. Those white, glowing eyes. The thought sent a shiver down Steve's spine, goosebumps rising all over his skin. Immediately he blurted out his discovery. The monsters are being controlled. That's why they haven't attacked you yet. Run. He's right next to you. Because Steve's ID was marked as an expert, his chat comments stood out in bold colors. He had chosen red for his font, and now the words, "Run. He's right next to you," flashed across half the screen in glaring crimson. Combined with the eerie atmosphere captured on the stream, the scene sent chills down everyone's spine. The moment the players saw Steve's warning, an uncomfortable sensation crept over them, making their skin crawl. I knew something was off. The monsters didn't attack Brother Mang. If it was before, they would have pounced on him by now. Shit. I'm getting freaked out by a game. Evil spirits, go away. God, is it really that white-eyed monster doing this? What the hell? Why would he do that? Could he actually have intelligence? Stop it, you're scaring the crap out of me. I'm logging off for now. Warning, high danger ahead. Non-combatants evacuate immediately. In the live stream, the audience was reeling from Steve's message. Even though they knew it was just a game, the game's hyper-realistic graphics made it feel like a first-person VR experience. With the ominous environment amplifying their fear, many of the viewers felt their hair standing on end. Sometimes, subtle, creeping terror is far more unsettling than outright shock. And what was happening to Brother Mang right now was the embodiment of such creeping dread. Everyone was beginning to suspect that the white-eyed monster Steve mentioned was behind everything. And the more certain they became, the scarier it was. If the white-eyed monster was truly responsible, it would mean Steve's description was accurate. The creature wasn't just a mindless beast, it had intelligence. No one knew exactly what it wanted, but its actions clearly didn't follow the usual behavior of typical monsters. If it were just a regular elite or boss-level monster, it would have already killed Brother Mang. But it hadn't. Its thought process was more akin to a human's. The chat in Brother Mang's stream exploded. Messages poured in, urging him to run. Brother Mang, too, had seen Steve's warning. He was already starting to grasp the severity of the situation. If the viewers watching from the safety of their homes were terrified, how could he, standing right in the middle of it, not be? He was trembling now, trying to calm his racing heart by mentally chanting, "It's just a game. It's just a game. This is just a freaking game." But no matter how hard he tried to reassure himself, reason couldn't overpower fear. It was like being in a haunted house. You knew the actors were just people in costumes, and they couldn't actually harm you. But in that setting, it was impossible not to be scared. At this point, Brother Mang didn't care about his pride anymore. He took a deep breath, trying to gather his courage, and turned to leave. But just as he turned around, before he could take a step, he froze in place. In front of him, a pair of hollow eyes, glowing with a white light, stared straight at him. Only now did Brother Mang understand what Steve meant by the white-eyed monster. The face in front of him was almost identical to Steve's, with the sole difference being those blazing, white eyes. The light from those eyes was like the Grim Reaper's scythe, cutting through Brother Mang's last shreds of hope and plunging him into despair. Just as he saw the monster's face, there was a loud boom, and his screen went black. In Brother Mang's live stream, even though the screen had gone dark, the viewers hadn't left. The chat was flooded with comments, even more active than when the stream was still up. What was that? What the hell was that thing? It looked all pixelated, like I couldn't see it clearly. We couldn't make it out, but it was definitely humanoid, with glowing white eyes. So, that was the white-eyed monster? What's going on? Why couldn't the camera capture it? Only appeared for a second and killed Brother Mang instantly. Brutal. Why couldn't the camera pick it up? Holy shit. Could that white-eyed monster be a ghost? If the players had clearly seen the monster's appearance, they might have just been startled. But the image on the stream had been so unclear, it made everything worse. The monster appeared to be cloaked in a mosaic of pixelation, making its true form impossible to discern. Only a rough outline of its figure could be guessed. The only thing that stood out, despite the distortion, was those white, glowing eyes. It was this ambiguity, this feeling of something being there but not fully visible, that made the player's skin crawl. Humans naturally fear the unknown. And at this moment, the white-eyed monster was the very embodiment of that fear for the players. Steve was equally stunned by what he saw. It took him a long time to snap out of his daze. Now, more than ever, he was convinced that the white-eyed monster wasn't just an ordinary creature. It was something special, something unique. Otherwise, how could it avoid being captured by the game's built-in streaming system? The thought of it sent a shudder through Steve. He didn't dare dwell on it any longer, his mind swirling with questions. What was this creature? What other abilities did it have? What was its motive? If it could control the other monsters, why didn't it just command them to kill Brother Mang? Why make the monsters stop attacking? Though his mind was flooded with questions, Steve didn't have time to ponder them now. He and the other players in the area were in immediate danger. The white-eyed monster had come here for a reason. Since its first appearance, it had already claimed 4 lives. Steve had survived by sheer luck before, probably because of his resemblance to the monster, but he knew his luck wouldn't hold out this time. Without wasting another moment, Steve bolted out of his door. This place isn't safe. Everyone, grab your stuff and run. Don't stay here any longer. Steve ran from door to door, banging on them, yelling at the other players to leave. His outburst caused quite a commotion. Many players came out, though not all of them took his warning seriously. Most of the players had watched Brother Mang's stream. Though some were scared, they thought moving just because of one monster seemed unnecessary. Besides, there were so many players gathered here. Surely they could take the monster on together. I saw the stream too. That monster can control other creatures and cause explosions, but that's about it. It's just scary because it shows up so suddenly. We've got the numbers. Why should we be afraid? Exactly. It's just one life. We can fail 1,000 times, but the monster only needs to screw up once, and it's done for. I want to take my chances. A monster that's strong has to drop some great loot. Instead of running, why don't we prepare and face it head-on? Go big or go home. The players' reasoning was simple. They wanted to gamble. At this stage, most players didn't have anything too valuable. If the white-eyed monster came for them, they'd just lose a life. They'd already died countless times to zombies, skeletons, and other creatures. Whether they died here or somewhere else didn't make much difference to them.